Formula One World Championship Series has appropriately climaxed at the most charismatic circuit of all, Monza Autodrome. For 60 years, fanatical Italian enthusiasts have flocked here, and nowadays they come with the passionate hope of seeing their beloved Ferraris winning. And after an amazing 2 days practice, their expectations are more than justified today. For 42-year-old Italian-American Mario Andretti, in a one-off drive to replace Ferrari's injured Didier Pironi, has incredibly achieved pole position on the starting grid. Mario heads 6 turbo cars, with Piquet, Tambay, Patrese, Prost and Arnoux second to 6th behind him, ahead of the fastest non-turbo World Championship leader Keke Rosberg's Williams. Then, 8th to 12th, is Giacomelli, De Cesaris, Lauda, Alboreto and Watson. Every one of the 26 starters qualified faster than the lap record, with Derek Daly 13th, Derek Warwick 16th, Brian Hinton 21st, and Nigel Mansell 23rd after a nasty off in which he was totally unharmed.
Ferrari assembly shop. Race fans gather to pray for the destruction of the opposing teams. Children bribe pigeons to evacuate on the heads of opposing teams. Fans draw lots for the privilege of running onto the track after the Ferraris have won, in order to be killed by opposing cars which have not yet finished. Policemen discuss which opposing team driver should be arrested for speeding. At Monza, it was turbo time again, and the only surprise was that the pole-sitter was ex-world champion Mario Andretti, the nearest thing Ferraris could find to an Italian driver. Bernie got back just in time from selling the Vatican Grand Prix to the Pope. Ballestri's Air Force tried to cut him off. But with the Pope in his pocket, Bernie had that extra something. And the official battle continued overhead.
Die Formel 1 Mathematik ist im Augenblick ein bisschen kompliziert. Ich will Sie damit gar nicht allzu langweilen, sondern es vom Rennverlauf abhängig machen, um Ihnen dann sagen zu können, ob Rosberg bereits Weltmeister werden kann heute oder nicht. 23 Giacomelli, schräg hinter ihm De Cesaris und neben De Cesaris dann Niki Lauda. Lauda hat gesagt, und zwar in Erinnerung an die Startkollision der beiden Alpha-Fahrer auf dem Österreichring, ich bin in einer ziemlich ungesunden Startposition, rund um mich ein paar Fahrer, von denen man weiß, dass sie am Start ziemlich heißblütig sind. Lauda wird vor allem vor der ersten Schikane, in der es ja vor 4 Jahren eine Massenkollision gegeben hat, vorsichtig sein. Sie erinnern sich sicherlich, wie oft Niki Lauda in seiner Karriere unmittelbar nach dem Start schon einige Positionen verloren hat, um dafür sicher durch die ersten Schikanen oder durch die ersten Kurven zu kommen. 5,8 Kilometer Streckenlänge im Autodrom von Monza, 3 Schikanen seit 1979, offizieller Rundenrekord, immer noch Clay Regazzoni 1979 mit 1,35,6, Schnitt 218,4 Kilometer pro Stunde, 1,35,6. Diese Zeit wurde im Training von 24 der 26 Fahrer bereits unterboten. Eine Runde in Monza, nach Start und Ziel, nach dem Boxen geht es also in die erste der 3 Schikanen, in die Variante Goodyear, die im zweiten Gang gefahren wird, und zwar mit 120 Kilometer pro Stunde. Sie sehen in unserer Streckenskizze das Licht aufleuchten, das ist die erste Schikane, links, rechts, voll beschleunigen nach der Rechtskurve in die Curva Grande. Die Fahrer im Rennen dann im 5. Gang mit etwa 230 hier in der Curva Grande, eine der berühmten Kurven im Autodrom von Monza. Dann in Aufbeschleunigen 250, 260, zweite Schikane ist die Variante della Roccia, 2. Gang, Geschwindigkeit etwa 100. Dann folgen die beiden berühmten Lesmo-Kurven, eine Doppelrechtskurve Lesmo. 4. Gang voll im Rennen nachher mit 250 Kilometer pro Stunde. Hier hatte John Watson voriges Jahr, vielleicht erinnern Sie sich noch, diesen fürchterlichen Unfall. Das ist die zweite der Lesmo-Kurven. Ausgangs dieser zweiten Kurve, 5. Gang und volle Beschleunigung. Die Curva del Seraglio wird absolut voll genommen. Dann kommt Sotto Pasaccio, das ist die Streckenunterführung. Höchstgeschwindigkeit Geschwindigkeit an dieser Stelle 312 Kilometer pro Stunde für den Ferrari von Mario Andretti und für die beiden Brabham BMW Turbo von Piquet und Patrese. Variante Ascari, dritter Gang 180. Nach der Curva del Seraglio folgt jetzt mit der Bremszone der Paraboliker der zweite extrem holprige Streckteil. Anfahrt auf die Parabolikerkurve. Geschwindigkeit etwa 280, 285. Kurveneinfahrt mit 180. In dieser Kurve hatte der Lotus-Fahrer Elio De Angelis, der Sieger des Österreich Grand Prix, im Training einen Unfall. Der Wagen ziemlich zerstört, ein Rad ist weggebrochen, der Fahrer unverletzt. De Angelis hatte auch noch eine Kollision mit René Arnoux. Nigel Mansell hatte in der ersten Schikane im gestrigen Training einen Unfall, ist auf einmal geradeaus aus der Kurve herausgefahren, gegen die Leitplanken geprallt. Für die deutschen Zuschauer ganz schnell noch Manfred Winkelhock, der heuer schon so oft überrascht hat, nicht qualifiziert für den Grand Prix, genauso wie Rupert Keegan, der Ersatzfahrer für Jochen Maas, wie Raul Bösel und wie Tommy Byrne. Strafweise um 3 Plätze zurückversetzt Jacques Lafitte, dessen Auto nach dem gestrigen Abschlusstraining gewogen und mit 574 Kilo um genau 6 Kilo zu leicht befunden wurde. Dadurch wurde Lafitte seine gestrige Trainingszeit gestrichen. Noch einmal Startaufstellung: Andretti und Piquet, Tambay und Patrese, Prost und Arnoux, Rosberg und Giacomelli, De Cesaris und Lauda, Alvarento und Watson, Daly und Chiva, Jarier und Warwick, De Angelis und Guerrero, Sura und Henson, Lafitte und Fabi, Menzel und Baldi und letzte Reihe Salazar und Serra. Ein Ferrari in der Pole Position, Mario Andretti vor seinem 127. Grand Prix, seinem ersten für Ferrari seit 10 Jahren, seinem ersten in diesem Jahr.
It is a distance of 187.4 miles. The lap record has stood to Clay Rigatoni since 1979, 135.6. Watch the lights in the top left corner of your screen and watch the 6 turbos that you see now. Andretti, Piquet, Tambay, Patrese, Prost and Arnoux, seconds to go. Nelson Piquet. Nelson Piquet has done it. He has got into the Reticilio first ahead of Tambay, and Mario Andretti is in 3rd position as they stream away out of the Reticilio up to the Curva Grande. There goes the world champion. Now he is setting about building up the maximum lead ahead of Tambay. Then it is René Arnoux, who has signed for Ferrari and is not even speaking to his Renault colleagues. Lap 1.
Well, a lot of popping and banging for the turbos on the first 2 rows, and they were all a bit slow away, but Piquet got the best of it, which is absolutely what he wanted. Whoops.
Yeah, that's Derek Warwick and Brian Hinton, and they've slowed up the rest of the field, including Derek Daly. Brian Hinton, there is Derek Warwick in the new Tolman, of which so much had been hoped. Here's a replay. Let's see what happened. Well, it looks as though Brian Hinton spun it, and Derek Warwick collected him on the way, and that's a bitter, appalling blow for the Tolman team right at the beginning of the Italian Grand Prix. Now, will they clear the track?
Yeah, it's hard to see how that started, because Henson, when we came in on the shot, had already got a wheel hanging off, so they may have made contact before. There's Tambay coming down front, followed.
Right, here we come to the end of lap 1, and it's a Renault going through into the lead. It is René Arnoux, who is now going to be a new darling for the Italian crowd because he's signed for Ferrari. Arnoux leads, Tambay second, Patrese is third, Andretti is fourth, and down to 5th position at the beginning of the second lap has gone Nelson Piquet, who was leading.
Yes, Piquet's engine sounded rough as he went past. He was very slow on the straight, so that's a bitter blow for Nelson Piquet. It really sounds as if his serious race is run. So he had some trouble with the electrics on his engine in the warm-up this morning that stopped the car out on the circuit. So the Brabham Challenge now looks very much as if it's left to Riccardo Patrese, who is in fact closing up in 3rd place.
Well, now, this is a very interesting political situation because René Arnoux is driving in his last race but one for Renault. He has severed his connection contractually, or will have at the end of this year. He has signed for Ferrari. He is now a bitter enemy of Alain Prost. Is not talked to by the Renault personnel. He had his lunch with the Ferrari people, believe it or not, and Riccardo Patrese is challenging Patrick Tambay for second place, and this is lap 3 in this lap 2, the end of lap 2 in this 52-lap race, as they come down to the Parabolica and Derek Daly into the pits. Now, Daly, I saw, was involved in the clash between Warwick and Henton. You see there's a course car out. Arnoux is into the Parabolica. Up into second place has gone Riccardo Patrese. Down to third has gone Patrick Tambay. And now we can start taking the gap between the second Brabham and the leading Renault of René Arnoux. And the gap was 3 seconds. But now Riccardo Patrese is now going to try and take up the running that his teammate Piquet had to relinquish.
Well, Alain Prost isn't going very well. As they went past our commentary position just then, he was in fact running behind Keke Rosberg, and that is a situation which, if Rosberg can keep it that way, will tie the championship up in his favour, unless of course Lauda can get a good result. So Prost is languishing and apparently struggling a bit. Hard to see why. He went well the warm-up this morning. The Renaults didn't stun the world in practice, but when it came to running the warm-up, they went well, and Arnoux is certainly proving that there's nothing a lot wrong with them right at the moment.
Well, lap 3 now. There is Arnoux leading. Patrese second. Can he catch the Frenchman in the turbocharged Renault? So it's a turbo leading, turbo second. The turbo Ferrari of Tambay is in third position. Then in fourth place it is Mario Andretti. In fifth place, and the leading non-turbo, it is the Alfa Romeo of De Cesaris, and off goes the second Toleman. Oh dear, what an awful day for Toleman, because Teo Fabi there out on lap 3. So Warwick out, Fabi out. Here come the first two down the straight to complete a lap, and it's René Arnoux. Now we can take the gap as they go across the line, and the gap with Tambay in third position, and there you see the rest streaming along, is 0.83 seconds, and Patrese is definitely closing. Andretti fourth, De Cesaris fifth. Prost is coming through and taking sixth position from Bruno Giacomelli as we look at Patrick Tambay. There are the leaders. Round the two Lesmo bends. This is a 106, the Grande Curve, I'm sorry, and that's about 160 miles an hour, and Patrese is right up with Arnoux.
Yes, Patrese is potentially going quite a lot quicker than Arnoux. It'll be, and I think the BMW engine, particularly coupled with the lighter fuel load that he'll be carrying, he should be able to carry him past the Renault if he gets a good run. He's got a possibility here. He's not quite close enough probably, but he's in the slipstream as they come down under the bridge and up to break into the second chicane. Patrese is not quite close enough this time, but if he can go through the chicane well, he's got a good run down to the Parabolica.
Well, now they go out of the Vialoni, into the Ascari bend and out of it. Now it's fifth gear, 180 miles an hour down here, down to the Parabolica on lap 4. You can see Tambay dropping back. You can see a terrific battle going on for fourth place behind the Frenchman in the Ferrari. But very soon, I would estimate that Riccardo Patrese is going to catch up with and get past René Arnoux, but then he's got to extend his lead to at least 30 seconds by the time they come in at half distance.
You can clearly see, if you watch over the last two laps, the disadvantage once Patrese gets close to the Renault, the turbulence destroys the road holding performance of his car, whereas when he was 100 yards or so behind the Renault, he was catching up hand over fist through all the corners. Now as they go into the corners, he's a little bit slower than the Renault, and he's got this problem of getting a good run, but he's very close now, but not now, breaking the chicane. He's got the chicane to negotiate. He'd like to get very close through the two Lesmo corners. There he goes. But once again, the turbulence is probably holding him back, and he's dropped back a little bit. He's got to get really quick through this one. But that's not quick enough and not close enough, I don't think.
Lap 5, the order. René Arnoux leads, Riccardo Patrese second. Tambay is third in the Ferrari, Andretti is fourth. Fifth is De Cesaris, sixth Giacomelli, seventh is Prost, eighth is Rosberg, ninth is Watson, 10th is Alboreto, 11th is Chiva, and 12th is Niki Lauda. And here is the battle behind. That is Patrick Tambay with Prost behind him. There is De Cesaris, who is in 5th position. They are coming out of the Ascari. Meantime, the leaders go into the 150 mile an hour Parabolica. They come through to complete lap 5 out of 52, and it looks as though Riccardo Patrese is not making up. Indeed, the gap now is some 1 minute 23 seconds. René Arnoux on his way to, or hopefully another victory as far as he is concerned, is now into lap 6.
I think I detected a little bit of a slowing by Patrese then. He could have had a misfire as he went past, and there goes Prost past Andretti, which is a very important move for him in his chase for the World Championship, but he's gone wide. He made a mistake there going into the chicane, and now he's got his work cut out to fend off the car behind him, and having done all that work, he was having trouble getting past Andretti, so it was a bad mistake for Prost. Having done the work, he's going to have to start all over again, and he can't afford to lose time. The leaders are getting further and further away.
But what is very important is that in this bunch, indeed the 5th of them, is the World Championship leader, Keke Rosberg. There he is, number 6, and he is in 8th position. Now, Patrick Tambay has pulled away a bit in 3rd position from Alain Prost in the Renault, who is now in 4th position. Now there is De Cesaris in 5th place, Bruno Giacomelli 6th. Up to 7th place goes Keke Rosberg. In 8th position it is John Watson. In 9th place is Lauda. There is Eddie Chiva, or was. In 10th position, Jarier is 11th. De Angelis is in 12th position. And the positions are changing all the way round the circuit in this bunch, which is chasing, and it looks to me as though it is catching up. Riccardo Patrese in 2nd place. Meantime, the leader, René Arnoux, is definitely pulling away, and the gap between himself and Patrick Tambay now is 7 seconds. And look at this, because Alain Prost is taking Dario Andretti. Well, the race pattern is changing rapidly on lap 7 out of 52. Fastest lap so far, Riccardo Patrese, 1:34.007, and that is a new lap record which has broken Clay Regazzoni's 1979 lap record. There is the race leader, René Arnoux. Now, Arnoux, number 16, has already, in his 63rd Grand Prix, won 3 of them, and he's on his way to the 4th Grand Prix win, and he desperately wants to do this to beat his teammate, Alain Prost, between whom there is no love lost. And you will have gathered that Patrese has slowed down and is coming into the pits. I hope we see this. But here is René Arnoux, new 2nd place man then. You'll see him in a moment. And a long, long way behind, there is on lap 7 in the background, Patrick Tambay. 2nd, Andretti in the 2nd Ferrari, 3rd, then Prost in the 2nd Renault. The first non-turbo is De Cesaris in the Alfa Romeo, and then Riccardo Patrese, who has dropped back. And into the pits too has come Jacques Lafitte. René Arnoux, now he is building a very, very commanding lead, because as he goes into the Rettifilo, the gap between himself and Patrick Tambay is 7.62 seconds. Then there's quite a long gap with Prost in 3rd, Andretti in 4th, De Cesaris in 5th, Giacomelli 6th, Rosberg 7th, and coming up to take Rosberg, as I talk to you and you see Patrick Tambay, is John Watson. Now, John Watson is still in the running for World Championship points. Don't forget, he is equal in 4th position with Niki Lauda in the World Championship. But there's a long, long way to go in this race yet, and the turbos could tire. Nelson Piquet is out of the race, and that's one of them gone. So it is now 2 turbo Ferraris, 2 turbo Renaults, and there goes photos, one of them, that of Patrick Tambay, and just one Turbo Brabham BMW. There is Riccardo Patrese into the pits, and it's quite clear that with the mechanics ready for refueling much too early, Riccardo Patrese, a very unhappy Italian, is out of his own Grand Prix on lap 8.
Damit geht die schwarze Monza-Serie des Monte Carlo-Siegers weiter. Patrese hat in Monza noch nie Punkte gemacht. Einmal 13., dreimal ausgeschieden heute, das 4. Mal. Prost, der 3. ist, Andretti 4., De Cesaris 5., Giacomelli 6., Rosberg 7.
Him, and it's a question really of whether he can close that gap and get past, because then we can get into the situation whereby we've got a Renault 1-2, and if it stays like that to the end of the race, will Arnoux obey team orders? Well, he didn't obey them earlier in the year, and I don't think there's much they can't jump out on the track and stop him, and I don't think he's going to obey it. So and that could be a situation where one could clearly say that it could cost Prost the championship on account of the French Grand Prix in which Arnoux was ordered to slow down. There is Piquet, by the look of things, limping into the pit, in and out, sort of played with the turbocharger, but looks as if his race is pretty well run. They're probably just trying to fix problems just to identify it for the future.
Well, as we look at Mario Andretti, who is in 4th position behind Alain Prost, the Renault with the red point on its nose cone. The leader is still Arnoux. You can see he's got 7 seconds lead over Patrick Tambay, who seems to be able to do nothing about it. And unless the Renault has trouble, it looks as though Arnoux is well on his way to another win, as Nelson Piquet definitely gets out of and leaves his car. So both the Brabhams away, and they'll be packing the cars up to get away. They have to get back to England for next Tuesday to get the cars ready to go to Las Vegas on Friday. But there is Keke Rosberg. Now, Rosberg is leading to win this race, and if he does, he will ensure the World Championship. He's up behind Bruno Giacomelli, and the order now on lap 10 out of 52 is René Arnoux leading, Patrick Tambay 2nd, Prost is 3rd. In 4th position it is Mario Andretti, in 5th position it is De Cesaris, in 6th position now it is Keke Rosberg, and in 7th position it is Bruno Giacomelli. Rosberg, the flying Finn, as they dubbed him at Dijon, his own countryman, is now definitely in the points. And he's got a very reliable motor car, which René Arnoux has not necessarily got, because Renaults have had 19 retirements in Grand Prix this year. And you see the gap now on lap 10, just under 1/5 distance, between René Arnoux, the race leader, Patrick Tambay there in 2nd place, this Frenchman who has so brilliantly taken his place in the Ferrari team to replace Didier Pironi, who is making great progress in hospital, incidentally, in France, we are told. Patrick Tambay crosses the line. The gap between Arnoux and Tambay is now 8.08 seconds. The gap between Tambay and the 3rd place man, Prost, is 7.8 seconds. So, and then between Tambay and Andretti, it is 4.7 seconds. Between Andretti and De Cesaris, it is 4 seconds. So, with Arnoux's car really bouncing over the bumps as it goes up to the Roger, we look back to see where Patrick Tambay is, lap 11, and you will see then behind him. No, you won't, because there is Tambay in the Ferrari, number 27, who has taken the number of the late, very great Gilles Villeneuve, and who won in Germany. And there, with the wheel off, that looks like Jarier, Jean-Pierre. No, it's the Osella. It's the Osella of Chico Serra. So, yet another retirement to join Henton, Piquet, Fabi and Patrese. Chico Serra in the Fittipaldi, who qualified in about 23rd position, is out of the Italian Grand Prix on lap 11, with Arnoux leading, Tambay 2nd, Prost 3rd, Andretti 4th, De Cesaris 5th, and up up into 6th place. To correct that caption, as we look at the replay, has gone Rosberg. Well, there you see Serra dragging the rear of the Fittipaldi along the ground to get it off the circuit. Arnoux completes another lap. That's his 11th. Tambay is certainly not gaining. It's Turbo Renault leading Turbo Ferrari in 2nd place. 7.75 seconds the gap. That is Tambay. Now Prost has gone through, still holding his 3rd position behind the man you're looking at, who is Patrick Tambay. The gap between Prost and Mario Andretti is 5.6 seconds. But now Rosberg and Prost, I hope we get a look at this as De Cesaris comes into the pit. Now, this means to say, with De Cesaris into the pit, this means to say that Keke Rosberg has moved up another place. He's having a terrific scrap behind the leader here, René Arnoux, Patrick Tambay, Mario Andretti, with John Watson and Bruno Giacomelli. And I'm expecting soon us to see Keke Rosberg, the World Championship leader in the first non-turbocharged car, the Williams, in 4th position. Now that's looking ahead. There's the gap between Arnoux and Tambay. Pistachio, 8.54 seconds. He's coming out of the Ascari, down to the Parabolica. There's Tambay. Now the next one up will be Alain Prost. There in the background you see the banking of the other Monza circuit. Now here is that battle. It's Giacomelli up with Watson. Now where is Mario Andretti? There is Keke Rosberg. Lap 12 has been completed by René Arnoux. There is Andretti. Tambay is still in 2nd position, and this is the battle for 5th position. Prost is still in 3rd place, so it's Renault's 1st and 3rd. The Ferrari of Tambay in 2nd position. Andretti is still in 4th place, and there's the battle for 5th.
Well, John Watson seems to be able to dispose of Keke Rosberg all right. Driving yet another good race, and there he is having a go. Bruno Giacomelli going inside him into the chicane, and he looks to have done it. Just keep it nice and straight through this section. Watson really driving a very good race. Again, he didn't qualify brilliantly, but he got the car beautifully set up for the race and had a very, very good run in race trim with full tanks, and the warm-up this morning was the quickest of the normally aspirated cars, and has now moved to the head of that battle, although he's got to get a bit of air between himself and Giacomelli, because with these couple of long straights coming, Giacomelli it's very important that Watson does the 2 Lesmos very well now, which he got into very well. Oh yes, and he's stretched out a big lead over Giacomelli. If he gets the 2nd one right, he's gone. So Giacomelli will not have another look at Watson if Watson makes no mistakes and his car holds up. He's now asserted himself ahead, and that's good for the championship, because whatever one's feelings of support for whoever one wants to win, it'd be nice if the championship goes right down to the last race, and Rosberg's having to fight very well, because obviously he'd like to throw it up here.
Well, first of all, as Alain Prost exits the Parabolica, an apology to Chico Serra. It was Jean-Pierre Jarier who punctured and retired, and not Chico Serra. Now there is Patrick Tambay in 2nd position. Alain Prost is still 3rd. Mario Andretti is still 4th. They are on lap 14. But it's the battle for 5th position, with John Watson in that place now. And John Watson, don't forget, is 4th equal in the World Championship behind Alain Prost, Didier Pironi, who will score no points more this year, and Keke Rosberg the leader. And in the later stages of this race, I'm expecting to see Rosberg, and we've discovered now what the secret tweak. There's Mario Andretti, number 28, that's Pironi's number, and Andretti in his 127th Grand Prix, of which he has won 12, and at this Grand Prix achieved his 18th pole position. Now there is Mauro Baldi, followed by, that is Chico Serra. There is the race leader, René Arnoux, in the Renault on lap 14, and as you see, he is some 8.8 seconds ahead of Patrick Tambay, coming out of the enormously quick Parabolica in 4th gear, changing up into 5th, 160 miles an hour, building up, and he's doing 190 miles an hour. as he goes into the Reticilio behind Chico Serra in the Fittipaldi.
Arnoux hat heuer schon so oft geführt und nur ein einziges Mal gewonnen, allerdings in einem sehr wichtigen Grand Prix, den großen Preis von Frankreich in Le Castellet. Sie haben es gesehen, Arnoux außen an Chico Serra vorbei, nur noch 15 in der gleichen Runde, als nächster überrundet wird der Italiener Mauro Baldi. Teamkollege des Schweizers Surer. Niki Lauda 9., 38 Sekunden hinter Arnoux nach 13 Runden, 1,3 hinter Alboreto und 4,1 vor Chiva. Boxensignale für Lauda im Augenblick also minus 2,7 Alboreto und minus 1,3 Alboreto und plus 4,1 Chiva. Salazar, Arnoux an Baldi vorbei. Das heißt für Arnoux natürlich aufpassen. Salazar ist oft sehr schwierig zu überrunden. Erinnern Sie sich an die Kollision mit Lenz und Piquet im Grand Prix von Deutschland auf dem Hockenheimring, jene Karambolage, die Piquet damals einen Grand Prix-Sieg gekostet hat. Watson, Giacomelli, Rosberg. Watson 5., Giacomelli 6., Rosberg 7. Fährt Giacomelli und Rosberg davon. Dahinter Alboreto und Lauda.
They've got a fair edge on par over the Ford Cosworth cars. Therefore, it's the same old syndrome as with the turbos. They're very, very difficult to pass because you come out of a corner where it tells you up. They put their foot down and just go away from you. And Rosberg has got the same problem. Here, of course, with Giacomelli, that's fair game because they're racing champions. In Dijon, the Cesaris was being lapped, and it really was a pretty disgraceful piece of driving because he held Lauda up as well for a long time after Rosberg had got by and seemed quite oblivious. He claimed that he was exhausted after the race, but if he's going to be a danger to himself and other drivers, that's really not good enough as an excuse because he was not exhausted enough to be able to see where he was going forwards, so he could have looked in his mirrors too. But anyway, that's all over and done with. Rosberg's much more interested in the problem today that he's got in front of him. That's Giacomelli with the power advantage. Meanwhile, he can watch Watson getting further and further away in front.
Lap 16 now, and René Arnoux, anxious to prove to the Italian crowd that he is more than justified in Ferrari drive in 1983, is leading in the turbocharged Renault by just under 9 seconds from Patrick Tambay in the Ferrari second, Alain Prost third, Mario Andretti fourth, John Watson, the leading 3-litre car, in 5th position, and there he is, behind him Giacomelli 6th, Keke Rosberg number 6 is in 7th position, 8th is Alboreto, 9th is Lauda, 10th is Chiva, 11th De Angelis, 12th Nigel Mansell, who's come up right from the back of the field, 13th Fura, 14th Salazar, 15th Baldi, 16th Serra, and Salazar, Baldi and Serra have been lapped. Andrea De Cesaris virtually out of the race because he has been into the pits. Jean-Pierre Jarier has withdrawn, as has Riccardo Patrese, Teo Fabi, Nelson Piquet and Brian Hinton. Into the Curva Grande. Giacomelli, who is 6th. And number 10, who is Salazar, is being given the black flag. He's porpoising very, very badly along the top straight, and we can only assume that the officials think it is dangerous. You are looking now at Michele Alboreto and Niki Lauda, and Alboreto is in 8th place. Lauda is in 9th position. Ahead of them, Rosberg 7th, Giacomelli 6th, Watson 5th, Andretti 4th, Prost 3rd, Tambay is still 2nd, and René Arnoux leads. And there's Watson. Giacomelli, Rosberg, Alboreto, Lauda. There's Michele Alboreto in the lightweight Tyrrell in its new livery. of which, and a very welcome sight, is British Racing Green. It's a long time since you've seen that. There's Bruno Giacomelli, who's had a pretty terrible season for Alfa Romeo and is rumoured to be leaving the Alfa Romeo team at the end of this season and possibly losing his seat to his countryman Mauro Baldi. Did very well here last year. He got up into third position before the end of the race. And now he is in sixth place. That's the last point-scoring position. He is on now his 18th lap. And there is Keke Rosberg, the World Championship leader in the Williams. Curva Grande. Fifth gear out of this, 160 miles an hour. Carry on in fifth gear, up to 180 miles an hour. Then they go down one gear as they come out of the Roja, and we're looking now at the straight which exits the Parabolica and leads into the chicane, the Rettifilio. There is René Arnoux taking Marc Surer, who is in 13th position, lapping the Swiss driver in the Arrows. René Arnoux coming through in the lead to complete his 18th lap. Nearly 9 seconds ahead of Tombe. And Surer. Well, René Arnoux may not be very popular with his countrymen at the present moment, but he's certainly endearing himself to a very quiet Italian crowd. The near hysteria has died down, primarily, of course, because Patrick Tombe is only in second place, and Mario Andretti is only, from the point of view of the Italians, in fourth position. They wanted better than that. They wanted first and second. But at least the man that you are looking at now, René Arnoux, 34 years old, from Magny-Cours in his 63rd Grand Prix, is going to be driving for a Ferrari next year. So that's some consolation for them as he goes into the Roja, under the bend, under the bridge. Now, out of the Seraglio to the Vialoni, the left-hander. This is a fifth gear bend down into third, about 11,000 RPM. Exits it, believe it or not, at 145 miles an hour. Up into fifth gear. And there is Elio De Angelis, who was in 11th place. And it looks as though the tyre changes are coming very early indeed. I certainly wasn't expecting them as quick as this. But as a calculated risk, the John Player Special Lotus team and Bob Dance, in the head mechanic in the middle, seems to be a bit confused about what seems to be happening if they change the tyres. But they decided to start Elio De Angelis on 3 soft tyres and 1 hard tyre on the left rear. And obviously the softs have worn quicker than they expected, and they're having to change them early in the race because it's lap 20 for René Arnoux now, leading Patrick Tombe by some 8 seconds.
Well, Alan Prost has finally made a small impression on the leaders in front of him, René Arnoux and Patrick Tambay, and he's closed up a second or so, which is good news for entertainment. He's closing, if he is closing consistently, it's very slow, but let's hope that he's closing it up to give us a bit of excitement from half distance onwards.
Interesting as we look at Keke Rosberg, who's leading the World Championship, to think very quickly about the point situation at the moment. There is John Watson, who is in 5th place. Now, Alain Prost in 3rd position is on his way to 6 points if he stays where he is. That would close the gap between himself and Keke Rosberg to only 5 points, because Rosberg is not in the World Championship points at the present moment, in 7th position, and that means that the World Championship would be decided at the last race of the year, the Caesars Palace Grand Prix at Las Vegas, in a fortnight's time. But there are still a long, long way to go. 4 points for Prost, I'm sorry, if he finished in 3rd position. There he is. And he passes on the circuit, 1:33, well, 1:34 seconds as nearest makes no difference, is an improvement of 1.6 seconds on the lap record of Keke Rosberg, and the gap between Prost and Tombe is coming down now. It is only 2.9 seconds, and it was 4.4 seconds. There is the Frenchman. Now the car seems to be settling well. Prost has re-signed for Renault for 1983. A victory, or even chances alive. There is the man he is chasing. Patrick Tambay in second place. And there's one thing to say about Patrick Tambay. He's been having nearly a fortnight's treatment for a trapped nerve in his right shoulder since the Swiss Grand Prix at Dijon, which he had to non-start. And a lot of us, frankly including me, are going to be very surprised if Patrick Tambay can go the whole race distance of 52 laps here, which could explain why Alain Prost is starting to close on him.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we don't know exactly how his problem is going to react to the race. Only a race can find it out. But I also think there's probably a tyre equation coming in this race. Prost is going very well right now at this moment, so he doesn't look to be in any trouble. But the companies are fairly evenly matched here. They're battling hard, and we've already seen a few raised eyebrows to tyres and things like that. So we could see a lot of changes towards the end of the race as the tyres really settle down. Watson, for example, went past Rosberg and Giacomelli very decisively, started to pull away, but is now struggling to increase his gap, and has got a little bit of a lead, but can't seem to increase it anymore. So I think the tyre balance will be moving around during the race quite a lot.
Springen. Beide Guerrero und Watson. Andretti und Tambay gewinnen für Villeneuve und Pironi. Naja, ui, das war jetzt knapp. Das war fast eine Kollision zwischen Suara und Guerrero. Ich verstehe die Härte dieses Zweikampfes nicht ganz. Guerrero liegt eine volle Runde zurück. Hat einen Boxenstopp gehabt, hätte also ohne weiter Suara jetzt vorbeilassen können. Serra, Guerrero, Watson, Suara. Zwischen Watson und Giacomelli 3,3 Sekunden. Weitere 2,4 zurück dann Rosberg. Weitere 2,6 Alboreto und weitere 2,0 dann Niki Lauda. Wieder Watson. Serra, Guerrero auf Endzeit, Watson. Dahinter versucht Giacomelli so bald wie möglich an Suara vorbeizukommen. Andretti überrundet Salazar. Nach 22 Runden zwischen Arnaud und Tambay 10,7 Sekunden, aber zwischen Tambay und Prost nur 2,5. Dann großer Rückstand von Andretti, der hier Salazar überrundet. Andretti 22 Sekunden hinter Arnaud. Andretti weiter.
Lap 23, and as we look at the hard-charging Mario Andretti there, you just saw, there's Niki Lauda. Lap 23, Lauda into the pits for tyres. Well, he was having understeering problems in the warm-up, and they made some changes to the car, and it looks as though that's affected tyre wear. Lauda was in 9th position, and that destroys his World Championship chances. So effectively, the World Championship now must be between Keke Rosberg, John Watson and Alain Prost, all of whom are, of course, in the first 6 places with the exception of Keke Rosberg. But look at now, Alain Prost closing up on Patrick Tambay, who is second, and the gap is down to only 0.6 seconds. The battle for second. The Ferrari, Tambay, the Renault, Prost, second and third. Out of the Rettifilio. Up into fourth gear. Round the Curva Grande. 160 miles an hour. Niki Lauda talking on the left to John Barnard, the McLaren designer. So the World Championship is down to 3 runners now. There's one of them, Alain Prost, number 15. turbocharged Ferrari being chased by turbocharged Renault. Frenchman at the wheel of both of them. Patrick Tambay second, Alain Prost third, and Tambay is now 11.3 seconds behind René Arnoux, who is all on his own on the 24th lap. There's Prost. Behind Prost, Andretti fourth, Watson fifth, Giacomelli sixth, Rosberg just out of the points at seventh, Alboreto eighth, Cheever ninth, Lauda down up to 10th position, then goes Nigel Mansell, up to 11th goes Sura, to 12th goes Salazar, to 13th goes De Angelis, to 14th goes Serra, to 15th goes Baldi, and then we are down to the people who are at least 2 laps behind the race leader, René Arnoux, as Tambay and Prost exit the Parabolica, coming up to complete lap 24. And you don't need me to give you a gap, there isn't one anymore. Well, there is, but you couldn't do it on a stopwatch. That's the Rettifilio, the first right and left. Now out of the right, up to the Curva Grande, and I think Prost will probably take Tambay as they come out of the Parabolica at the end of this, the 25th lap, which is coming up to half distance. Half distance, of course, is lap 26 in this 52-lap, 187.4 mile Italian Grand Prix. And if one may make the regrettably obvious remark, we are all watching the Renaults to see whether this time they are going to be reliable. There's an enormous excitement in the Italian crowd now as they see Arnoux, and there is Rosberg ahead of Giacomelli. Rosberg has lost his rear wing. Look, now look at this, number 6. This is really going to cause problems, and Giacomelli is going through. Keke Rosberg then waves him through, and there's no rear wing on the Williams. That will, of course, dramatically affect, to put it mildly, the downforce.
Yes, Giacomelli was signalling to Rosberg that he had lost his rear wing. I'm sure by the handing of the car, Rosberg was aware of it, but that was very kind of him, and it was acknowledged by Rosberg. Well, as they went past the pits, we had Prost challenging Patrick Tambay in the Ferrari. We didn't see if they got through up the corner, but it looked as if Prost was going to move up to second place there. And he is, in fact, closing a little bit on his teammate René Arnoux in the lead. Here is Keke Rosberg, rear wingless, and really these cars, they go like mad down the straight with no wings, but they are more than a handful around the corners, and Rosberg will surely have to come into the pit. But you never know, maybe it's not working so badly. He doesn't seem to be going that slowly. I would have expected him to be in more trouble than that. Yeah, it's wandering about at the back, and I'm sure he'll pick now.
He's been passed by Giacomelli and by Alboreto, and now I expect to see him come into the pits because the Williams mechanics are ready. They know what the problem is. They've got a television monitor in their pit. They will have a wing ready, and Keke Rosberg, when he comes out with a new rear wing, I expect will start a terrific charge to try to get back into the points. Alan Chalice on the left, the head mechanic, is supervising things.
Yes, the problem with a manoeuvre like this is these rear wings are very carefully attached because it's normally a very dangerous thing if one comes off. They're not fitted in such a way as so they don't expect to have to make a quick change in the pits, and so I think you'll find that Rosberg is really pretty much out of the points today unless some extraordinary things happen. They don't look as if they're going to get that car back on the road very quickly. And that needs things, but Prost, here is Prost trying to get past Tambay. He's having another go, and he can't quite get close enough. He's had a go there. That's the third lap running, and it's the turbulence as he goes into the corners behind the Ferrari. He slurs through the corners. You see he loses ground there, and he's definitely not quick through the Lesmos when he's got the Ferrari in front of him to mess up his aerodynamics. And he seems to be a little bit bereft of ideas at the moment to get round. But let's hope we stay with this battle and see how Prost goes about it, because here is undoubtedly one of the world's best competitors and top drivers, Alain Prost. He's a truly outstanding driver in the business at the moment, and we'll see how he sets about dealing with this problem. Struggling at the moment.
And Prost's hand goes out. Is he in trouble? He's stopping. Yes, the Renault has again failed. Alain Prost is out, I think, But yes, he must be, of the Italian Grand Prix. And now this blows the World Championship absolutely wide open. Keke Rosberg will fight back, and Prost is touring. Look at him.
Well, what a great shame, and what a terrible anticlimax this is, because unless John Watson can score plenty of points today, the World Championship can be finished while everybody's stripped from the pits. In fact, half the drivers will be on their way home in aeroplanes while it's getting settled, and that's really a sad way for things to be. So there goes Rosberg out of the pits, but probably out of the points. But it's all over bar the shouting, because Prost looks to be out of it.
Well, you can imagine what a reception the fact that Alain Prost has gone out of the race and let Patrick Tambay, number 27 there, secure his second place, has received here at Monza from the Italian crowd. They have gone absolutely berserk with joy, and now Rosberg is more than a full lap behind Patrick Tambay.
Yes, the Italian crowd, nothing if not sporting, always very keen to take the sporting spirit, cheering like mad at Alain Prost's misfortune, but that has always been a great tradition here at Monza, and it's greatly appreciated by the drivers and everything. They love to be booed and everything when they break down.
Well, let's look at the situation now. On lap 28 out of 52, René Arnoux is leading very securely, but that one Renault out of the race is Arnoux's going to last. Prost has rejoined. Arnoux leads. Tambay is second. Up in the third position then comes Mario Andretti. In fourth position now is car number 28. Well, Mario Andretti, in third position. Then behind him in fourth place is John Watson. And there is a stationary Alain Prost, who is definitely out of the race. He blasted out of the pits. And how often have we seen this sight? A rueful, unhappy, not to say angry Alain Prost, and he's at the exit of the Reggie Fili-Oe out of the race.
So I would speculate that he spun there and stalled the engine. It looks very much... I think he might have got out of the pits in such a peak of overexcitement that he may, just on coldish tyres, have made error there, because if he'd broken down, he would have pulled off the track. So I'm only speculating, but that's a great shame anyway, because it looks as if we're heading for the most terrible anticlimax, and it's a sad way to finish the season if we're going to do it that way. That has had its ups and downs, but in terms of an open battle for the championship, has always looked very good. But this would be an awful shame if we finish it all with nobody on the track and everybody else going home, except of course the Italians who just watch the Ferraris cruise round.
What is the World Championship situation then, as we look at René Arnoux on lap 29, leading very comfortably indeed by 15 seconds from Patrick Tambay? The answer is that John Watson is in the points. Alain Prost, of course, is out of the points. Lauda is out of the points, and Rosberg is out of the points. The gap between Keke Rosberg, who was on 42 points, and John Watson, who was on 30, was 12 points, therefore. And if John Watson, who is in fourth position, can get 3 points, he's going to improve his chances of staying in the World Championship down to the last race, as Alain Prost's car is winched off the circuit. Well, there's no doubt about the fact that he's retired now, as René Arnoux on lap 30 with 22 to go at the end of this one comes up behind Chico Serra in the Fittipaldi to lap it.
Watson, Giacomelli, Alboreto und Cheever, eine Runde Rückstand. Menzel, De Angelis, Salazar, Sura, 2 Runden zurück, Serra, Spaldi, Rosberg und De Cesaris. Blaue Flaggensignale, Lass überrunden. Gilt für Serra, der von Arnoux überrundet wurde, rechts der Schweizer Sura. Sura jetzt wesentlich langsamer geworden.
In the meantime, we are obliged to pin our hopes to John Watson, for whom, of course, if it works out, this could be a very big break. Rosberg is now 2 laps behind and effectively not in a position to score points, except there is Alain Prost, dejected, walking back to the pits. We don't, per se, know exactly what happened. we would all dearly love to know. But in the meantime, it is a potential break for John Watson. John Watson is 4th place at the moment. That earns 3 points, which would take him up to 33 points, which would mean that he was 9 behind Rosberg. And, of course, he would then have to win. And Rosberg not to score in Vegas, and then he could win the championship, because he'd win the championship. They were equal points. Watson's won more Grand Prix, especially if he had the additional win at the end. However, that's all fairly pie-in-the-sky theoretical stuff. What we need to all cheer for, both for the sake of the championship and for our big British hope, John Watson, is not only that he keeps going and maintains the pace he's done on the road, that he maybe gets a couple of breakdowns or something in front of him to get him a real good bag full of points.
There is no doubt a very happy René Arnoux, who will have seen Alain Prost's deadly and hated rivals Renault being taken off the circuit, who will know from his Renault pit signals that he has a very commanding lead of some 19 seconds now over Patrick Tambay, who will be praying for reliability. The Ferraris are 2nd and 3rd. If anything happens to Arnoux, we can expect the greatest demonstration of all time in motor racing history, with Ferraris 1st and 2nd. John Watson is in 4th position and therefore on 3 points in the championship.
Yes, John Watson is in fact within striking distance of Mario Andretti in 3rd place. He's some 12 or 13 seconds behind him, and whilst there's no doubt that Mario is very fit, he's been doing a full season of racing in the United States. He also did a lot of very thorough preparation for this race itself by doing a huge mileage in the Ferrari, Ferrari's private test track in Fiorano. And, but even so, these cars are so much harder physically to drive than they were even as short a time ago as when Mario bowed out of Formula One. But it may be hard work for him to hold on, and Watson, we've always found, has been a very good stayer and will continue to produce and deliver up to maximum performance for the whole of the race. So he's 12 seconds behind Mario at the moment, with a chance to close.
That is Patrick Tambay. And the gap between Andretti and Watson is remaining at 12 seconds. I have just taken it. And on lap 32, Arnoux, Renault leads. Tambay, Ferrari 2nd. Andretti, Ferrari, a magnificent 3rd in his comeback race. 4th is John Watson in the points. 5th is Giacomelli. 6th is Alboreto, and 7th Cheever. Nigel Mansell has come up from 23rd on the grid to 8th. 1 lap behind the leaders. De Angelis' teammate is 9th. Salazar is 10th. Serra is 11th. And Baldi is 12th. But Keke Rosberg, who rejoined the race in 18th place with that new wing, has now fought his way up to 13th position. But, as James has said, he is 2 laps behind the leaders. And in World Championship terms, it is John Watson who is making the running. If he can only get up 1 place, if he can close the gap between himself and Mario Andretti, it's going to be a very, very close thing at Caesar's Palace. So, lap 33, the fastest lap of some 1:33 seconds by, at the time, Alain Prost, is about 2 seconds faster than Regazzoni's 1979 lap record. That's probably the oldest lap record in the book for current Formula One World Championship races. The Italian Grand Prix here last year was very wet, for instance, and kept lap speeds down. And coming towards us, you see Michele Alboreto, who is now in 6th position. There's Bruno Giacomelli in the Alfa Romeo. And on lap 33 now, Arnoux leads, Tambay 2nd, Andretti 3rd, John Watson is in 4th position, Bruno Giacomelli is in 5th place, and there, into the pits as I say that, comes Bruno Giacomelli, and that's going to help Keke Rosberg, of course, but particularly it's going to help Michele Alboreto, it's going to help Cheever, and it's going to bring Nigel Mansell 1 place nearer World Championship point score. There's Ermanno Kurgi. And by the way, Elio De Angelis is in 9th place in the John Player Special Lotus, 1 lap behind the leaders.
Well, they changed the tyres on Giacomelli's car, but I think he had more trouble than just that, because he slowed right down for that second half of that last lap. He just completed. He's got out of the pit sounding pretty healthy, back on the track. But if it was just tyre trouble, I can't see why he'd slow right down and let everybody pass. So maybe he's got some other bother as well.
There's Andretti. What an incredible man Mario Andretti is. He decided after a very, very unhappy season with Alfa Romeo in Formula One last year that he would return to and stay in America. That is Mark Sura in the A4, the older of the two Arrows cars, coming into the pits. He's in 15th place, 4 laps behind René Arnoux. His teammate Mauro Baldi is in 13th place. There is Bruno Giacomelli being passed by a hard-charging Keke Rosberg. It's the second stop, by the way, for Mark Sura. And on lap 34 in this very, very interesting Italian Grand Prix, René Arnoux is 18 seconds ahead of Colbe, who is 37 seconds ahead of Andretti, who is some way ahead of John Watson in 4th position, with Alboreto in 5th place. Giacomelli in 6th into the pit. That brings Eddie Cheever now, who, by the way, has signed for Renault next year. Eddie Cheever, the American, driving the Talbot Vatra car here for the last race for one, is driving, or will be driving, for Renault next season. Derek Warwick lost that seat by a hair's breadth, and we're waiting to see what's happening to him next season. There is Rosberg coming across the line to complete another lap, and that means that Keke Rosberg will be now on his 34th lap, I estimate. Nigel Mansell is going extremely well. He's a lap behind, but he's getting closer and closer to the points. And the order with Giacomelli there into the pit. And don't forget that Andrea De Cesaris was effectively out of the race. And Andrea De Cesaris, that's Alain Prost. Alain Prost explaining to his Renault team colleagues what has happened to him, and not at all happy about it, I'll be bound. As René Arnoux comes up to lap Elio De Angelis on the right. De Angelis, who is in 9th place, has been lapped by Arnoux, who really does seem to be invincible at the moment. We've said this time and time again, but if a turbo lasts for half the race distance, it normally lasts the whole race distance. Not invariably, but normally. Two Brabham BMWs out of the race, one of the Renaults out of the race, that's Alain Prost. Both the Ferraris still running 2nd and 3rd, and they are famous for their reliability, especially since they introduced this new water injection engine, which helps to keep the internal temperatures down. And they're in a strong position if René Arnoux has trouble, which does not at the moment look at all likely. There he is on his 36th lap, on his way to his 4th Grand Prix win in his last but one race for Renault, with 14 pole positions behind him, 3 wins, 5 seconds, 2 thirds, 8 fastest laps. The man who started his career, like so many Grand Prix drivers, in karts, then went on to Formula Renault and Formula 5000, was given his Formula One break by John Surtees, and has been driving now for 4 years for Renault.
Und Verschiedenes. Zum Beispiel, wenn Sie sich an die Grand Prix-Rennen auf dem Österreich-Ring und in Dijon erinnern sollten, Rosberg ist dort jeweils in der zweiten Hälfte der Distanz wesentlich stärker gefahren als in der ersten Hälfte. Der Grund war der, dass das Williams-Team einen technischen Trick ausgeheckt und erfunden hat. Einen Trick, über den die Techniker und auch die Fahrer nicht reden dürfen. Es gibt 2 Mutmaßungen. Die eine ist, dass es dem Fahrer möglich ist, während des Rennens das Chassis abzusinken und für die entscheidende, für die letzte Phase des Grand Prix mehr Bodenhaftung zu haben. Und die zweite Theorie ist bitte nicht die, dass es den Fahrern möglich sein sollte, während der Fahrt Reifenluft dazu zu befördern, sondern einfach an Reifendruck zu gewinnen. Warum?
De Angelis into the pits. Elio De Angelis, who was in 8th position and out of the race. Well, De Angelis was 1 place behind Nigel Mansell. That means to say now that the retirements from the Italian Grand Prix include, right at the beginning of the race, Brian Hinton in the Tyrrell, Derek Warwick, who went off with him, Nelson Piquet out in the Brabham BMW, his teammate Riccardo Patrese, the second Tolman, Theo Fabi out, Jean-Pierre Jarier out, De Cesaris effectively out in the Alfa Romeo, Alain Prost, who was in 3rd position in the Renault, out of the race, the man who could have challenged Keke Rosberg for World Championship honours, and Elio De Angelis in the John Player Special Lotus out of the race.
Dass man mit etwas weniger Druck in den Reifen an den Start eines Rennens geht. Und zwar aus folgendem Grund: der ideale Druck in einem Reifen ist etwa 0,9 Atü. Wenn es ein Rennreifen am Beginn eines Rennens bereits diese 0,9 Atü hat, dann hat er gegen Ende des Rennens durch die Reibung und durch die Wärme etwa 1,1 bis 1,2 Atü. Wenn aber jetzt in einem Reifen zu Beginn nur etwa 0,7 Atü sind, also etwas zu wenig, dann hat er in der Endphase, in der entscheidenden Phase eines Grand Prix den idealen Reifendruck von 0,9. Und das ist genau die Taktik, die Williams in den letzten Rennen, vor allem auf dem Österreich-Ring und in Dijon angewendet hat. In Selzwick hat es nicht ganz gereicht, ein großer...
I can't see any way, as we watch 4th place man John Watson, that Rosberg can get back into the points. So, as James has said, if John Watson stays where he is, he and Keke Rosberg will go to America, to Las Vegas, with only 9 points between them. And the World Championship will be decided, or would be decided, in America. But we still have 14 laps to go at the end of this one. There is Tombe, 2nd place, completing the lap. And Andretti there into the Retticelio. 42 years old, this American. And although American racing is very demanding, it is very, very different in that it is mostly around ovals where you keep going round and round one enormous corner in effect. And Mario Andretti is unused to this Formula One twisting and turning racing. He's only had one previous Formula One World Championship drive this year, and that was at Long Beach in a Williams, where he qualified 14th but retired from the race, and he's now closing up on De Cesaris in the Alfa Romeo. He's well down. De Cesaris is at least 2 laps behind Mario Andretti. And there is the official qualification showing Arnaud Tombe Andretti with John Watson, and everybody up to 4th place. John Watson has been lapped by René Arnoux, including Alboreto 5th and Giva in 6th position. There's Mansell, number 12, 7th position. De Cesaris in the Alfa Romeo, 11th place now, 2 laps behind the leaders. Going to be challenged and no doubt passed by the turbo power of the Ferrari with Mario Andretti at the wheel. Salazar, that is, in the ATS, and he is in 8th place. Still very warm. The sun has disappeared. The light is a lot duller, but the clouds are still throwing shadows on some parts of the circuit. It's very hot and humid. Not ideal weather for turbos. There is the Talbot defector, Eddie Cheever, who is in 6th position, a lap behind Arnoux. Behind him is Mario Andretti. He's Tombe, coming out to take Cheever and lap him. And Tombe has driven a superb race. This man who had been written off by Formula One and had in fact disgustedly written off Formula One at the South African Grand Prix this year, when he was so disgusted by the driver's strike, I want to have nothing more to do with Grand Prix, but was persuaded back by a plum drive with Ferrari. And since then, he has won the German Grand Prix. He has finished 3rd in Britain. He's finished 4th in France and Austria. and in his first, and in Holland he finished in 8th position. Didn't start in the Swiss Grand Prix because of that trapped nerve in his right shoulder, and it looks as though my fear that number 27, 33-year-old Patrick Tambay from Cannes, nicknamed Prince Charming for obvious reasons, he's a delightful man, is going to prove me wrong and finish the Italian Grand Prix with enough stamina to go the distance in spite of the nerve problem he has been having. Past to De Cesaris. Behind him is Chico Serra in the new F9 Fittipaldi, and the race order on lap 40 with 12 laps to go is Arnoux leading. Tambay is in second place. Third is Andretti, and you're looking at the Italian-American there now. Fourth is still John Watson, who is 21 seconds behind Mario Andretti and not gaining on him. Then behind Mario Andretti with Watson, 5th Alboreto, 6th Chiva, 7th Mansell, 8th Salazar. 9th Rosberg, 2 laps behind the World Championship leader. 10th De Cesaris, 2 laps behind. 11th Serra, 12th Baldi, 3 laps behind. And then out of the race, effectively, De Angelis, Giacomelli, Fura, Prost, of course, is out. And the unfortunate Roberto Guerrero, the amiable Colombian driver in the Ensign, has also retired, as has Niki Lauda.
Well, I said a little while ago that Watson was down to 12 seconds behind Andretti and stood a chance possibly of closing on him in the latter part of the race. Well, Andretti and Watson between them have answered that very firmly, because ever since I said that, John Watson has actually been losing ground to Andretti, who's now got himself into a fairly secure place, 21 seconds ahead of Watson, but Watson in third is 21 seconds ahead of Michele Alboreto, who's his nearest challenger from behind. So Watson's in a pretty lonely and steady fourth place, and all he can hope for really now is a steady run to the finish with no trouble for himself, and a bit of trouble up front for the others if he can get lucky. It's not a nice way to score points for the others breaking down, but it's all part of motor racing, and that would certainly be his hope. But the two Ferraris are famous for their reliability. Of all the turbo teams, they're the one team who've got it together and been running their engines, their car very reliably this year. And in fact, Andretti was testing Fiorano last week, and he was trying to do a lot of laps, and then he started to do more laps than he wanted to. He was getting so tired, and he said the trouble was the bloody engine wouldn't blow up. So he couldn't get the engine to finish. He just went on and on and on forever. And so he had a very exhausting time there. But it seems to be paying off, because he's showing no signs of tiredness in the race now. And in fact, it's going as well now as he's gone at any stage in the race. And really an excellent drive for somebody to come right back in after a long layoff. One race at Long Beach, apart from that nearly a year since he drove Formula One. And a particularly excellent effort by Andretti.
Gegenüber Mansell und Chiva. Außer 2 oder 3 Fahrer machen ihm noch den Gefallen und bleiben in den letzten Runden stehen. Niki Lauda hat das ziemlich richtig durchschaut. Er hat gesagt, der Rosberg müsste schon unbedingt stehen bleiben und heute nicht ins Ziel kommen. Dann gäbe es noch eine Chance, Weltmeister zu werden. Guerrero wurde von Arnoux überrundet. Guerrero fährt mit 11 Runden Rückstand immer noch, obwohl er keine Aussichten hat, jemals in diesem Grand Prix noch qualifiziert oder klassiert zu werden. Die Ehrentribüne mit Italiens Staatspräsident Pertini. Die Sportfreunde unter Ihnen kennen ihn sicherlich schon vom Fußball-Weltmeisterschaftsfinale aus Spanien. Auch damals ist Pertini ja auf der Ehrentribüne gesessen und hat den Sieg der Italiener miterlebt. Heute ist er gekommen, um den Sieg eines italienischen Autos oder italienischen Fahrers feiern zu können. Wenn es so weitergeht, wird er den Sieg des nächstjährigen Ferrari-Fahrers René Arnoux miterleben vor 2 italienischen Autos, den Ferraris von Tambay und Andretti. 10 Runden noch zu fahren im Autodrom von Monza. Watson unverändert Vierter, ungefährdet Vierter, 23 Sekunden hinter Andretti und 21 Sekunden vor Alboreto. Könnte sich also leisten, jetzt pro Runde 2 Sekunden langsamer zu fahren und würde trotzdem noch Vierter bleiben. 17 Sekunden zwischen Arnoux und Tambay. Das heißt, dass es sich Arnoux jetzt leisten könnte, auch pro Runde um 1,7 Sekunden nachzulassen. Und trotzdem würde er
race distance. He is now his 43rd lap with 9 to go at the end of this one, making his way down to the third gear parabolica. There is Patrick Tambay in second position. We haven't seen John Watson for a while, but rest assured, those of you in Britain, that he is still in fourth position. And those of you in Australia who I know have adopted Keke Rosberg in lieu of Alan Jones as a sort of adopted son of Australia as the Williams team leader. He is charging magnificently onwards, 2 laps behind the race leader. Keke Rosberg is in 9th position now, albeit a long, long way behind. No chance at the present moment of getting World Championship points. And he will have the consolation, not that he can think about it because he's pretty busy at the moment, that if the race positions that obtain now are held to the end of the Italian Grand Prix, and there's not very long to go, he will be going to Las Vegas 9 points ahead of John Watson, and that seems to say that John Watson would have to win in America to win the World Championship, even if Rosberg was out of the points altogether. And whilst it's not impossible, it would be a very, very stern challenge for the Ulsterman, John Watson. Here is René Arnoux going underneath the banking of the banked Monza circuit. Going out of the Vialoni and Ascari. That's one of the 3 chicanes that have been put into Monza since it was originally designed. It was opened in 1920, incidentally, this most historic of all circuits. Down into the Parabolica, which is where Jochen Rindt went off and was tragically killed some years ago. And Arnoux comes down now to complete lap 44. The car sounding absolutely perfect, looking very steady. It's very, very bumpy. Into the Rettifilo, right, left again. Now into the Curva Grande, one of the really famous corners. And you'll probably see a lot of graffiti on the circuits, which has been painted by the Tifosi. Some of it is repeatable, a lot of it is not. And Arnoux goes into the Rogia now, the left and the right. That leads into the 2 Lesmo bends, 165 miles an hour, which is described by Nigel Mansell as terrifyingly quick. Then into the Seraglio, the left-hander that he's approaching now. That leads down to the Vialoni, which leads immediately into the Ascari, right-hander. Then the drag down to the Parabolica. And as I talk to you, Keke Rosberg in 9th place is shaping up to pass Eliseo Salazar in the ATS, who is 8th. But Rosberg would then have to catch Nigel Mansell, who is a full lap ahead of him, and Eddie Cheever, who is a full lap ahead of him, past both of them to get into 6th place and into the points position. There is Rosberg, which could guarantee him the World Championship, and he's now taking the ATS. There's Salazar on the left. That's the man who featured in the memorable coming together and the physical confrontation with Nelson Piquet at Hockenheim, and Keke Rosberg has surged past him. Rosberg fighting, James, with the problem of a rear wing which may not be set ideally.
Yes, that's right. The team will, of course, had a spare wing in the pit set as best they can to the angle of the one that came off, but they, as you absolutely rightly say, they don't always go on exactly the same, and it's a very fine increment on the rear wing to make quite a big difference to the balance of the car, which is the important thing for getting it round quickly. However, Rosberg looks pretty happy out there for a man who's a long way behind, certainly with his car, and I think he now has to hope for breakdowns and retirements ahead of him, because he really doesn't have a hope of catching Cheever, who is the one he would have to pass to get into the points, and that's really a full lap ahead of him.
There's the fin from Helsinki and Maidenhead. Keke Rosberg has now an extremely nice home in Maidenhead. So if you like, he's an adopted son of Britain as well as an adopted son of Australia. Everybody loves Keke Rosberg, and why not? He's an extremely nice chap. He is now in 8th position, having passed Eliseo Salazar. As James says, he can only get in the points if at least 2 people retire in front of him. The Williams looking as though it's handling very well. They will have been able to judge the wing position, of course, but even a 16th of an inch these days on some adjustments, notably the skirt adjustments, can make the difference between a car which handles beautifully and a car which is absolute rubbish and virtually unhandleable. But that does not seem to be a problem as far as Keke Rosberg charging along now in 8th position is concerned. There is Arnoux lapping again Chico Serra, number 20 in the new Fittipaldi F9, and going the race distance. And the Fittipaldi team have had a lot of problems this year. They, like several of the constructors, are short of money. And talking about constructors, Ferrari have almost certainly, if they go on as they're going now, won the Constructors' Championship for 1982. We always talk about the Drivers' Championship, but to the constructors, of course, their championship is even more important than the drivers' one. And when the Italian Grand Prix started, Ferrari were 4 points ahead of McLaren. Both cars count in the Constructors' Championship. So Tambay, who is second, would get 6 points for Ferrari. Andretti, who is third, would get 4 points. That would be a total of 10. And John Watson would get 3 points for McLaren, and Ferrari would be virtually clear for the Constructors' Championship of 1982, if not totally clear. My brain isn't working fast enough to work the points out for you, but I'm pretty sure that Ferrari are virtually home and dry for the Constructors' Championship.
Durch Fahrfehler unter anderem in Monte Carlo die Kollision mit den Leitplanken und mit Elio De Angelis. Wenig später kam es dann zum Sturz an der Schikane. Rosberg. Ich kann mir vorstellen, was der viele jetzt im Cockpit denken wird. Lieber Gott, lass einen der 7 vor mir stehen bleiben. Er weiß sicherlich, dass Watson Vierter ist. 5 Runden vor Schluss. Arnoux 19 Sekunden vor Tambay, 57 vor Andretti, 1,25 vor Watson, eine Runde vor Alboreto und Chiva. Dann Menzel, 7. mit 2 Runden Rückstand, 8. Rosberg, 9. Salazar, 10. De Cesaris, dann mit 3 Runden Rückstand 11. Serra und 12. Baldi und nur noch diese 12 in der Wertung. Im Rennen zwar auch noch Guerrero mit 12 Runden Rückstand an 13. Stelle, aber bereits außerhalb der Wertung. Andretti, 3. Der 4, die den Grand Prix von Italien in Monza schon einmal gewonnen haben. Andretti, Sieger 1977 auf Lotus, Niki Lauda 1978 auf Brabham Alpha, Nelson Piquet 1980 auf Brabham Ford und Alain Prost im Vorjahr auf Renault. 18 Sekunden, Sie haben es gesehen, zwischen Arnoux und Tambay, 4,5 Runden.
8 have been lapped at least once. So the Italian Grand Prix is proving to be, like so many of them, a race of attrition. A lot of disappointed Italians are starting to leave now because we are on lap 49. There are only 3 laps to go at the end of this lap. There is René Arnoux going into and now out of the Roja.
Well, it's beginning to look now that we will at least have a theoretically alive World Championship for the last race. Because John Watson, if he continues to run without problems and nobody else has trouble over these last 3 or 4 laps, will finish 4th, giving him 3 points, which will take him to 33, which is 9 behind Keke Rosberg's 42. And as I mentioned a little earlier, Watson can win the championship from that position. It's far-fetched in theory because he has to win in Vegas and Rosberg has to not score at all. They would then have a tie, and Watson would win the championship on the fact that he would then have had more wins in the season than Keke Rosberg. It's a long shot, but stranger things have happened.
A very strange thing, and there is Patrick Tambay, number 27, carrying Villeneuve's very sentimental number to the Italian front. A strange thing is going to be the atmosphere in the Renault pit when number 16 there, race leader and potential winner, René Arnoux, with now is coming up to complete his 50th lap soon, at the end of which there will be only 2 laps to go. And Renault are going to have very divided feelings. They're going to be naturally delighted that one of their cars has won. They are not going to be best pleased that the man who was driving it was René Arnoux, who they think has treated them pretty shabbily in going to Renault, into going to Ferrari, and in deliberately defeating Alain Prost in the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard, and therefore, in their view, virtually destroying Alain Prost's chances of the World Championship this year. So maybe the champagne will come out, but maybe they won't bother to take the cork out of it. There is Patrick Tambay in second position. It's going to be Ferrari's second and third. We look at Michele Alboreto, the second of those 2 cars. He's in 5th position. That means that once again, this extremely competent Italian who is staying with Ken Tyrrell next year, but we don't know what engine is going to be in the Tyrrell. We know that it's going to be a turbo, and we suspect it's a BMW. There is Guerrero, who is in 13th position. Here is Tambay, a lap ahead of the 5th place man, Michele Alboreto, number 3. Arnoux is now on his 51st lap in this 52-lap race. And my goodness, how Keke Rosberg is charging. You just caught a quick glimpse of the tail end of the Williams sliding out there. Patrick Tambay there is going through into his 51st lap. He has now only got 7.2 miles, less than that, between himself and a fine second place. And if he gets that, that will be 6 points. That will give him 25 points in the championship. And if he had started in it earlier, he might well have won it. Arnoux, this man who speaks French with a very, very distinct country accent, who is alleged to have been employed by Renault in the first place, partly because that was the sort of image they wanted. He has served them extremely well in the 4 years that he has driven for them, because the number of pole positions in practice, fastest place on the grid that René Arnoux has scored, is practically a record, 14. It's less than that of Niki Lauda, who has scored an incredible 24 pole positions, and who, by the way, is out of this race. But as Arnoux now comes out of the Parabolica to complete lap 51, to cross the line now to go into his last lap on his way to his 4th Grand Prix victory in his career. He is some 14 seconds ahead of Patrick Tambay. I have got the stopwatch running. The gap now is 14.35 seconds. The second Frenchman is going to be Frenchman first and second. That man will win if he can just keep going, and it would be the bitterest luck if René Arnoux there did not keep going. He's only got half a lap to go now, and the gap between Patrick Tambay and Mario Andretti, who is in 3rd position, and it's going to be a wonderful comeback for the Italian-American. I'm waiting for Andretti to cross the line. He does it, 35 seconds. So the gaps are being maintained all the way round the last lap. There is Arnoux, down to the Vialoni, down into 3rd gear, round the right-hander at Ascari, up into 4th gear, down to the Parabolica for the last time. 5th gear, building up to 180 miles an hour. He will go down into 3rd gear as he sets the car up for the right-hander. and it'll be into the Parabolica at about 140 miles an hour. Just imagine it. He keeps on going. Now he can win in his own time. The man with the checkered flag is out, and for the fourth time, René Arnoux wins a Grand Prix for Renault, and he waves his hand in joy. Of course he does. Patrick Tambay, now the crowd will be able to give vent to their pro-Ferrari feelings. The flags are waving already all around me. Patrick Tambay finishes in second place, and we look back to the Parabolica for the hero of the Tifosi at Milan, Mario Andretti. But there is Arnoux touring in. Well, one Renault failed to finish, that of Prost. Two Brabham BMWs failed to finish, those of Piquet and Patrese. The Turbo Tolman was out of the race, both of them, Fabi and Warwick, right at the beginning. Both Ferraris are going to finish, and already Arnoux has got his helmet off, and Mario Andretti has finished in third position. Now, is John Watson home yet? No. And already the crowd is starting to surge out onto the circuit. This is traditional at Monza, as it is at Le Mans. And we wait and wait and wait, and the finisher, the flagman, look at that. That is incredible. And there are still drivers driving and racing in this Italian Grand Prix. And we wait for John Watson to come through. We're still waiting for him to come through in fourth position. There he is. John Watson has finished in fourth place, albeit with a rather rough-sounding engine on the overrun.
Hat zu Patrick Tambay, der an zweiter Stelle lag und der dann ausgeschieden ist in der 27. Runde. Zunächst einmal im Boxenstopp, dann wieder ins Training gegangen ist und dann ausgeschieden. Hier sehen Sie den großen Sieger von heute, René Arnoux auf Renault Turbo. Der nächstjährige Werksfahrer bei Ferrari gewinnt den Grand Prix von Italien in Monza. Zweiter Patrick Tambay, dritter Mario Andretti, beide Ferrari. Vierter John Watson McLaren, fünfter Michele Alboreto auf Tyrrell, und in der Weltmeisterschaft Rosberg 42, Pironi 39, Watson 33, Prost 31, Lauda 30, Arnoux 28, Tambay 25, De Angelis 23, Patrese 21 und Piquet 20 Punkte. Es ist also der Kampf um den Titel noch nicht entschieden, und der Vize-Weltmeister werden können immerhin noch 4 Fahrer, inklusive Niki Lauda, der dazu allerdings den Grand Prix in Las Vegas gewinnen müsste. Jetzt ist natürlich im Autodrom von Monza die Hölle los. 2 Ferrari-Piloten auf dem Siegerpodest der ersten 3. Patrick Tambay als Zweiter und Mario Andretti als Dritter. John Watson macht die Weltmeisterschaft noch ein bisschen spannend. Alboreto mit jetzt 16 Punkten, weiterhin 11. aber er hat immerhin den Rückstand zu den vor ihm liegenden Fahrern verkleinert. Insgesamt 25 Fahrer, die heuer Punkte der Weltmeisterschaft erreicht haben. So viele Fahrer wie nie zuvor in der Geschichte der Formel 1 Weltmeisterschaft, die ja 1950 begonnen hat. Das übliche Monza-Chaos. Jetzt natürlich begeisterte Zuschauer, die unbedingt die Helden des Rennens, die Sieger von heute feiern wollen. Hier kommt René Arnoux bereits ohne Sturz an die Box zurück, ist ein großartiges Rennen gefahren, der kleine Franzose, und hat wenige Wochen nach seinem Sieg in Le Castellet in Frankreich zum zweiten Mal in diesem Jahr einen Grand Prix gewonnen. Im Hintergrund sehen Sie den ausgeschiedenen Renault Turbo seines Teamkollegen Alain Prost. Arnoux gewann nach einer Fahrzeit von 1 Stunde und 22 Minuten 25,734 Sekunden. Das schnellste Monza-Rennen aller Zeiten. Nicht nur der Trainingsrekord, sondern auch der offizielle Rundenrekord von Claire Regazzoni ist heute verbessert worden von den Renault-Fahrern Prost und Arnoux, und selbstverständlich auch der Streckenrekord, der bis jetzt gehalten wurde vom Vorjahrssieger von Alain Prost. Zum zweiten Mal hintereinander also ein Renault-Sieg im Autodrom von Monza, aber heute ein neuer Sieger, René Arnoux, der noch nie zuvor in Monza gewonnen hatte. Damit bleibt es bei vorläufig 9 Grand Prix-Siegern in 15 Läufen dieser Formel 1-Saison 1982. Je 2 Siege für Pironi, Prost, Lauda, Watson, Piquet und jetzt Arnoux. Je 1 Sieg Rosberg, De Angelis, Patrese und Tambay. Der 34-jährige René Arnoux darf sich über den 4. Grand Prix-Sieg seiner Karriere freuen. Er hat vor 2,5 Jahren, das war in Brasilien und in Südafrika 1980, hintereinander die Grand Prix-Rennen von Südafrika und von Brasilien gewonnen, hat dann 2,5 Jahre warten müssen bis zum Sieg in Le Castellet. Allerdings war es dort notwendig, die Stallorder zu verletzen und die Befehle, seinen Teamkollegen Prost gewinnen zu lassen, zu negieren. Und heute der 2. Sieg für René Arnoux. Wie man ihn kennt, hat er sicherlich keine bitteren Gefühle darüber verschwendet, dass jetzt sein Teamkollege Alain Prost nicht mehr Weltmeister werden kann. Die Rivalität zwischen den beiden Renault-Fahrern war in den letzten Wochen schon sehr, sehr groß und ich glaube, die Renault-Box hat mit Bangen darauf gewartet, dass Prost an Tambay vorbeifährt, den 2. Platz einnimmt und wenn man dann Arnoux signalisieren muss, lass Prost überholen, wie hätte dann Arnoux reagiert, hätte sicherlich Prost nicht überholen lassen. Sie kommen jetzt von überall her, von allen Richtungen, die Tifosi im Autodrom von Monza, über 200.000 Zuschauer, heute etwas zahmer als sonst, aber warten Sie auf den Jubel, der losbrechen wird, wenn dann die beiden Ferrari-Fahrer Tambay und Andretti auf dem Siegerpodest erscheinen. Hier im Autodrom von Monza, in dem siegreiche Ferrari-Fahrer bereits vergöttert wurden, sieglose Ferrari-Autos aber gesteinigt. Ich erinnere mich an 1974, Lauda und Regazzoni hatten damals die Chance, Weltmeister zu werden. Beide haben geführt, beide sind ausgeschieden wegen lächerlicher Defekte und in jenem Jahr ist Emerson Fittipaldi auf McLaren dann Weltmeister geworden. Das ist noch einmal der Augenblick des Triumphes für René Arnoux. Genau nach 52 Runden der Grand Prix von Italien in Monza abgewinkt. In Dijon war es ja ein bisschen anders, da hat man den Sieger Keke Rosberg eine Runde mehr fahren lassen. Problemlos war das Training von René Arnoux sicherlich nicht. Eine Kollision mit Elio De Angelis in der 2. Schikane. Der Wagen wurde gestern erst, ich glaube, für die letzten 10 oder 15 Trainingsminuten fertig. Und jetzt erleben Sie den Monsterjubel um René Arnoux, Patrick Tambay, den Sie hier im Bild sehen, und Mario Andretti. Sehr guter Grand Prix für Patrick Tambay. Seit der Ferrari fährt, in jedem Grand Prix im Ziel gewesen. 4-3, 9-3 und heute 6 Punkte für die Weltmeisterschaft geholt. René Arnoux grüßt seine italienischen Fans. Arnoux hat früher jahrelang in Italien als Mechaniker gearbeitet, Kfz-Mechaniker, und kennt aus dieser Zeit noch die italienische Sprache. Links Tambay, in der Mitte Arnoux und rechts Andretti. Für McLaren ist das heutige Ergebnis aus einem speziellen Grund etwas bitter. Ferrari hat 6 und 4, 10 Punkte geholt für die Weltmeisterschaft der Konstrukteure, hat statt 64 jetzt 74 Punkte. McLaren hat nur 3 Punkte geholt durch John Watsons 4. Platz, macht 63 Punkte. In Las Vegas wird also wahrscheinlich Ferrari den Weltmeistertitel der Konstrukteure gewinnen. Und das war ja vor allem der Grund, warum man Mario Andretti für Monza verpflichtet hat. Ob Andretti auch in Las Vegas fahren kann, ist mehr als ungewiss. Andretti hat für diesen Tag Rennverpflichtungen in Amerika. Das Gedränge da unten ist es sicherlich lebensgefährlich. Aber die Ferrari-Fahrer wissen, was sie ihren Fans schuldig sind. Schauen Sie sich diese Szenen an. Hier oben ist schon Niki Lauda gestanden als Weltmeister 1975 oder als Monza-Sieger 1978. Das war noch einmal der Moment des Triumphes für den 34-jährigen Franzosen. René Arnoux, Sieg im klassischen Grand Prix von Italien in Monza, Sieg in jenem Rennen, von dem die Fahrer sagen, ein Sieg in Monza ist genauso viel wert wie ein Weltmeistertitel.